Welcome into Teal, the show. It is Black Friday, but there's no discounts on our Jaguars coverage tonight. We've got Frank Frangie in the building. I'm Jamal St. Cyr. This is a big week for the Jaguars. It's also a big week for the Texans, Frank. This is a game that will decide who, when it's all said and done, will be in first place in the AFC South.
It's a big game. Happy Thanksgiving, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody watching. And you better believe it's a big game because these are two good teams. That's the bottom line here. We're talking about two good football teams. The Texans weren't supposed to be good yet. The Jaguars were supposed to be good, and they are. Two good football teams, and it's a gigantic game, maybe the biggest game ever played between the Jaguars and the Texans. It's the 44th time they will have played, but maybe the biggest game they've ever played against each other, ever. Think about that. Big game between these two Sunday in Houston.
All right, as we start talking about this game, Frank, we have to start with the quarterback situation because this is a battle that we could see go back and forth for some years now in the AFC. Trevor Lawrence taking on C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud's been a fantastic rookie. I think the Jaguars found that out the hard way the first go-around with him, that he's not just your average rookie quarterback. The Jaguars know that they're going to have their hands full, and he's going to make it really difficult on their defense.
He can make the throws. He's pretty athletic, and he showed that when he played us.
Pretty amazing to see him come in and do the things that he's been able to do. Takes care of the ball, throws the ball wherever he needs to, makes a bunch of plays with his legs, and he's a guy that he's really putting on great performances week after week after week.
You know, when it's all said and done, if both of these players live up to the expectations that are on them, this could be one of those divisional yearly rivalries that you hear about in the NFL, but maybe Jaguars fans have never been involved in one before.
They haven't, and I think you're dead right. I think that's what's going to happen. I think you're going to see C.J. Stroud and Trevor Lawrence get to the next level. For a long time, they're both young guys. They're both smart guys. They were both really good college players, so they're used to the expectations. They've both taken their teams deep into the college playoff world, so they're used to winning. I love this matchup. I think Trevor's the better of the two players right now. Not everybody agrees with that. Some people say you'd rather have C.J. Stroud. I'll take Trevor, but I'll tell you this, they are both good players. They're both gamers. They both got big arms. They're both athletic. I think it's going to be Jacksonville and Houston in this division for many years to come.
It looks like this is going to be the beginning of a budding rivalry for a long time. Hopefully the Jaguars will be in the driver's seat of it like they are right now. Currently, the Jaguars control their own destiny. They do have to take care of business against the Texans this week to make sure that they stay in full control of that destiny. But the Jaguars are in control of the division. Doug Peterson says right now the team is looking at things 1 week at a time and has no reason to start looking at the big picture just yet.
We still have to understand that, we still haven't done anything, right? I mean, yeah, okay, we got in the playoffs last year, but didn't do anything. We didn't finish, right? So, we have to play the same way. We got to play as we've got everything to prove. Our back's against the wall. It's a playoff atmosphere,
We'll talk about all of the ramifications of what this can turn into if there's a win or loss, but the team is focused on this is just the next game on the schedule.
That's right, but it's a very big game. And know this about this matchup between these two teams. All the talk has been about Houston because C.J. Stroud is good so fast, and Tank Dell is a guy nobody knew about, and Will Anderson looks like the right guy at the other high pick. But make no mistake about this. The Jags are in first place. It's not like they're chasing a first-place team. The Texans, despite the fact that they won the first game between the two teams, they're the team chasing the first-place team. The Jags are in first place, and they hold serve, and if they hold serve and win, they're still in first place, this time by 2 games.
All right, since you brought up that last game between the Jaguars and the Texans, it wasn't one that the Jaguars are very proud of. Doug Peterson, during his time leading the Jaguars, has said a few times that there's just those games where if you can't get up for this one, then maybe you need to find something else to do. This game kind of has that feeling. He mentioned that he doesn't have to give the team some big rah-rah speech this week. He just told them when they have some time, turn on the game the last time they played the Texans, and they'll see.
Just go back and watch the game. I don't have to tap back into that or into last week. It's a week-to-week business. Obviously Houston's a good football team. We're a good football team. We're better. We've learned from it. But I do want them to watch it.
I ain't gonna lie. They told me to go watch. I'm not gonna watch it. I'm not. I don't want to. I'm gonna just be like this the whole time. But I'll tell you this. I'm gonna be ready this week.
No, I watched it last night. I mean, you definitely got to watch it. I mean, that's what they're watching. I mean, everyone's seen it, so we got to go see what we did and what we put on film and correct those things so it don't happen again.
You know, Frank, that last game, definitely, it felt flat. I mean, I just remember the stadium that day, it kind of felt flat from the beginning, and then you kind of have gotten to this point with the Jaguars where you think, oh, they're going to get back in it, and it just never quite got over the hill.
Yeah, it was a quirky game. If you think it was 17-0 Texans, the Jags roared back, got it to 17-10, looked like they were back in it. They had made some mistakes early, a fumble here or there to dig themselves a hole. Looked like they were back in it. And then they gave up the kick return. I think the kick return, and then they didn't cover. They broke the coverage, busted the coverage at Tank Dill got loose. But the kick return, I think, changed it. I think the Jags were back in that game. It made it look like they got blown out. I think they were right in the game, and 2 big plays happened. So, again, I think the Jags match up better with this team than people think they do.
All right, we'll talk more about the matchup and how it's shaping up and things that'll be important for both teams coming up right after this break when Teal the Show returns. Welcome back into Teal the Show. The Jaguars getting ready for a big game against the Houston Texans. This is one that we know they've had circled on the calendar. This game is huge for both teams. I know we'll talk about how important it is for the Jaguars, but the Texans haven't had a game this important in a long time either, Frank.
Well, that's the point. They're a young team. They've played without expectations until now. It's easier to play when nobody thinks you're going to be special yet. Everybody thinks C.J. Stroud in time was going to be special. Remember, Davis Mills, they thought he may be the starting quarterback at first. Now they know how good C.J. Stroud is. So they haven't had expectations until now. They haven't had a game that everybody was watching until now. Nobody was watching the Cardinals game or the Bucs game, or they lost to the Panthers and the Falcons. They have a good team. Well, now everybody's watching. Now everybody's talking about the game. They have a game now that everybody's talking about, and that is a lot of pressure, no question.
So the Jaguars are going to need to have some things go right. You heard Frank say earlier he thinks the Jaguars match up really well with this Texans team. Now, last week, the Jaguars got back on that right foot, took down the Tennessee Titans. One of the reasons they were able to do it was because their offensive line played a really good game. Gave Trevor plenty of time back there to operate, and, you know, he's a smooth operator when he's got time. Now, the offensive line doesn't necessarily get as much love as maybe they should, but Trevor Lawrence says those guys have a tough job, and the offense doesn't work without him.
It doesn't go without them, and I think sometimes, you know, I should mention it more because people don't understand that. I understand that, and we talk about it a lot in our group. So, you know, we love those guys up because it is a tough job. It's the most selfless job on the field. You know, you do your job great, no one talks about you. You give up a sack, everybody's talking about you. It's the opposite of other positions, you know.
You know, we've talked a lot about the Jaguars' offensive line here on the show, and they've had some struggles, mostly because they've had some guys shuffling in and out and dealing with injuries. Frank, they're finally kind of settled into their 5, and the team is starting to finally have some time to gel.
Well, Walker Little played way better this week than he did the previous week. He hadn't played much left guard. He finally got to play a little bit. He played way better. Ezra Cleveland comes in every second or third series just to get some work there, but Walker Little's the left guard. They've got to block the ends here. John Grenard, the former Gator, has 7 sacks. Will Anderson only has 2 sacks, but he's getting a lot of double teams. So they've got good outside pass rushers. It seems like the Jags are facing a good defensive line every week, doesn't it? They have drawn more good defensive fronts, including last week against the Titans. The Titans don't have a great team, but they're good at that spot. They've got to block Grenard and Will Anderson, a big key to the game.
And they've got some good defensive fronts left on the schedule still. Cleveland Browns got one of the best. So definitely some challenges for that offensive line group the rest of the way. But focusing on this Texans game, Frank, on the Jaguars' defensive side of the ball, we talked about C.J. earlier. They're going to have their hands full. One guy who's been playing lights out, Devin Lloyd. Him and Foye are going to try and do their best to maybe confuse C.J. a little bit, but they've been playing fantastic football.
Devin Lloyd has made the biggest jump from one year to the second year that I've seen a player make in a long time. He was lost last year. Remember, he even lost his starting job for a while. Chad Muma came and played just so Devin could just get his wits about him and calm down a little bit. He's been phenomenal. I think Foye Oluokan's the best tackler in the NFL. He's led the league in tackles the last 2 years. He's in the top 2 or 3 now. I think he's the best tackler. He finds the ball, and I think Devin Lloyd is going to be a star. He runs. He can do a lot of different things. Those 2 guys together have been outstanding, and you're right, they better be outstanding this week.
All right, before we get to the picks, it is the Thanksgiving week. So give me one Jaguars player you're thankful is on the team.
Oh, goodness. There's a lot. Where do I start? there's a lot of guys. You can certainly go Trevor and Josh Allen. They're the 2 stars. Calvin Ridley's here now. But I will tell you, you want me to pick a guy?
Yep.
I think a guy that's a leader, that plays well every week, that everybody respects is Christian Kirk. When Christian Kirk came here, people said, oh, they're paying him too much. And I said, no, they're not, because there's so much he affects that team in so many ways. He's great with the media. The media gave him the award of the best guy to interview last year. I think he represents the Jacksonville Jaguars so well. I could have answered that with 20 guys, right? 10 guys at least. But I'm going to say Christian Kirk because I think he's a really special Jaguar. I really do.
He definitely is a big part of the culture that they are building here in Jacksonville. All right, Frank, win or lose, Jaguars, Texans, what do you think?
I think Jags are going to win. I've gone back and forth on this game. This one's nervous. I could change my mind in a minute. Tomorrow morning, before we get on the plane, I could probably change my mind. Before they kick off Sunday, I could change it back. But as we sit here right now on Teal the Show, 2 days before kickoff, I think the Jags are going to beat the Texans. I think they're locked in. I think they're focused. I think they've got the better of the two teams. I'll take Jacksonville.
I'm with you on that one, Frank. I do think the Jaguars take down the Texans. Jaguars just seem to play better on the road, don't they? And this is a big game. They know what's on the line. That first Jaguars-Texans game to me almost felt like they underestimated the Texans. They were reading the things that we were saying, this Texans team, they'll be good later, but not this year. And it felt like the team didn't show up until maybe halftime when they realized, this team showed up to play us and we weren't ready, and now they had a hole to dig out of them. Like you said, just a couple plays. Sometimes football comes down to just one or two plays, didn't go their way, and they couldn't get out of that hole. And since then, we've seen them playing much better. I think the Jaguars win. I think Trevor Lawrence maybe has another pretty good day out there with a chance to get a little bit of revenge. Revenge is definitely on this team's mind this week.
I think there'll be some points in the game. I don't think this one's 17-14. I think there are going to be some points in the game because both quarterbacks really are good. I don't think we're headed to 45-41, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's 31-27, which in the NFL is a high-scoring game. Good quarterback play on both sides. I think the Jags are a little bit better.
All right, Frank, I got one last thing I want to throw at you before we wrap up. C.J. Stroud, the first time the Jaguars played him, hadn't thrown an interception yet. This go-around, he's thrown 4 interceptions in the last 2 weeks. Do you think teams are starting to figure him out just a little bit, maybe?
The league does punch back, Jamal. It's a great question. The league will always punch back. You do something, the league figures out who you are, and now they can prepare for you. So I think a little bit of that's happening. I still think he's really good. I think he's going to take good care of the ball over the course of his career. But, yeah, he's in a stretch now that the league's figured him out. Now, he's got to counterpunch a little, and we'll see what happens. I think he's going to turn 1 or 2 over on Sunday, I do.
Looks like a little bit of a boxing match out there on the field this week. We'll see if the Jaguars can be the ones to land the knockout blow. Frank, thanks for being here. Thank you at home for tuning in. Good night, everybody, and go Jags.